Eswatini is facing an economic meltdown that has been made worse by illicit financial flows. Illicit financial flows cripples the country's ability to provide essential services in the sectors of education and health. As the Federation, TUCOSWA, through the support from our sister organizations, we have embarked on a campaign to raise awareness about illicit financial flows in the country.
I am going to be talking about illicit financial flows, which is a cross-border capital movement for purposes of concealing illicit activities such as tax evasion and other things that those people who are in power are practicing. These things pose a challenge to us as workers in our countries, especially in Africa, because they take away money that is supposed to be used to develop our countries, especially the education systems, the health systems, and also other developmental issues like infrastructure development. Then our countries, they then lag behind and they don't develop. We develop documents like the national development strategies and highlight, emphasize on certain developmental issues that we're going to do. But we end up not being able to do that because of the capital outflows. And that is done by the people who are politically connected and also done by the multinationals, the big companies. They come to invest in our countries and form shell companies, but do not bank in our institutions. They take the money and bank it in other countries, causing a lot of deficits meaning they don't pay tax. This is strategic for these influential people, because you find that there are some countries that are said to be tax havens where they take the money and hide it in those countries. And for most African countries, ever since we started knowing about these issues, we know that the most political leaders in Africa have what they call Swiss banks, Swiss accounts. They bank their money in Switzerland because in Switzerland the legislation there allows that people can keep their money without being followed by police services. In Swaziland, we are unfortunately do not have that much information on how deep is this problem. For a number of reasons, we have a regime or government that is quite secretive, because our king is above the law. He also exempted from paying tax. And most of the people who are close to him, they end up using his name to even divert funds that are supposed to come to government into their own accounts. We, as a federation, we have tried to get information from institutions such as the Swaziland Revenue Authority. They did come to our workshops where we were trying to teach our members about illicit financial flows. But we later on, when we wanted to get the exact figures on what really this means, it was quite difficult. We tried to talk to the Central Bank of Swaziland. When we were preparing for such meetings, They then did not want to entertain us. They used a lot of excuses, including COVID, as part of the excuse, even when we had agreed that we can use virtual meetings. The police service has also not been helpful. We agreed with them that we will have a session, but when we made follow-ups, we found that they were pushing us from pillar to post, giving us excuses, including an excuse that the country was preparing for Ingwal and other things, so they couldn't be of help. So we feel that there is a lot that needs to be done in terms of research on these issues, so that and also campaigning on so that the ordinary man in the street, the ordinary worker, would understand the implications or the effects of illicit financial flows in the economy.
Illicit financial flows inside and outside the country, and the effects that might have on teachers and the education system, as it were. We are going to be addressing those two broad issues briefly, but starting with educators, as the negative impacts that are caused by such illicit financial flows. Firstly, we are going to note that educators today, they are earning meager salaries as compared to their counterparts in other countries, particularly the SADC region. In this particular instance, we are making specific reference to the Republic of South Africa because our economy as a country is hinged upon that of the Republic of South Africa, and by extension, our standard of living. And if we are talking about teachers earning so low salaries, it means they are unable to keep up with the demands of the living and the standard of living, as it were. And there are other critical issues that we must be focusing on as a direct consequence of the shortage of funds or residual income to be used by those in the public sector. We know for a fact that there are other things that go together with salaries, and these are allowances. Teachers in this country are not in a position whereby they are able to enjoy salaries like their counterparts in other countries or like other workers within the country. The salaries and the allowances that teachers are getting today, the allowances were reviewed 16 years ago. And if you take that, measuring it against the standard of living currently, it means that the allowances that these teachers are getting are insignificant. And by allowances, we talk about housing allowances, we're talking about commuting allowances and all other necessary allowances. And there is one critical issue that teachers are not enjoying at this point in age, and that is very, very worrying. This is the medical aid cover. Even though we had recommendations in the past by salary review consultants to say teachers as public servants are supposed to be enrolled in the medical aid cover, our government has never been able to make that happen even today. That is why we are losing so many of our teachers, more especially those who have got underlying sicknesses, medical conditions, and comorbidities. And as a result, as a country, we are unable to get that which we are supposed to get from these people in whom we have invested so handsomely. Secondly, maybe we are going to focus on the negative impact of these illicit financial flows on the kids as well. It is important to note that as educators, we are concerned about the delivery of education as a public good, which must be accessible to all, which must be cheap, but which must be of good quality as well. 90% of the kids that we are teaching are orphaned and vulnerable. Some are coming from child-headed families, and as such, these kids are being supported by the government for their fees or funds in schools. And since the invention of these funds or facilities in 2010, that money has never increased even by a cent up to now. And then when you compare that with the standard of living currently, it means that even the funds that government is paying to these various schools is very, very insignificant. And as we are talking to you, it will be clear that it means the education is underfunded, is underfinanced, and therefore that impacts negatively on the quality of education. Consequential to that, it means then our kids are unable to raise that competitive edge when they are compared with their counterparts in the outside world, which means therefore in this era of globalization and internationalism, we are unable to compete with the kids or with other sectors and jurisdictions from other parts of the country, or from other parts of the world, as it were. Which means, as a country, we've got to focus more on increasing substantially the budget directed to education, to the teacher salaries, and to the resources and both human and material resources, so that the education can be well capacitated.
One would like to talk about the issues of illicit flows and their impact on school support employees. This is a huge challenge because it impacts on the employers' salaries because these funds allocated to pay for their salaries are deposited to individual schools. And you find that they don't come on time. It depends on the number of children in a school, thus leading to little funding that goes to schools with little enrollments, and it ends up not catering for salaries for the whole year. And the frustration now is that these employees end up not getting their salaries due to those challenges that they are being faced. As school support staff, it was going to be better if government is taking care of the salaries for school support staff than sending that allocation to the individual school, because it then you then find that it is used for other things because schools are less funded due to these IFFs issues. These people, for an example, are earning as little as 800 Malangeni per month in other categories. The highest paid employee in this industry is the accounts officer and the bursar, who are not even highly paid because they are getting something not more than 4,000. It's less than 4,000 what they are getting. Then these impact on their social welfare and their health. You find that these employees suffer from depression, and most of the time they are stressed. They can't buy basic needs for their families. They can't pay school fees for their children because of these issues that they are faced with. Thus leads to a generation of children who live under poverty and hunger. So, as the Trade Union Congress of Swaziland, we say no to IFFs, and we say government should do something about these issues because it has a huge impact.
We want to demonstrate that the healthcare system is one of the most affected in respect to what we would call illicit financial flows. Why are we saying that? It is because we are seeing, or we are experiencing a lot of challenges that we see as a result of the healthcare system showing every sign of collapsing and failing to service the people of this country. The healthcare system currently is characterized by a situation where there is serious drug shortages, to the effect that to some extent you'd even find a situation where there's even shortage of oxygens. In the situation of this COVID, this results to unnecessary deaths. And again, it is characterized with a situation where there's serious inadequate human resource. Even the government roadmap that was championed by this current leadership indicated clearly that there's serious shortage of nurses and other healthcare workers. And the COVID situation has made it even more worse, because you'll find a situation where some nurses are affected, some nurses have to go for isolation, some have to go for treatment. And that leaves a situation where some department has got to close because the remaining staff can't cope with the demands. You have a situation where there's shortage of test kits, there's shortage of PPE, which then makes it even worse to deal with pandemics like the COVID-19 situation in the country. Now, the healthcare system, once again, is characterized by a situation where the health workforce is no longer motivated in the sense that much as they sacrifice themselves, much as they dedicate themselves to do their work efficiently, but there's no way by which the government or the employer appreciate their effort or their sacrifices. And that makes it difficult, for the people in the country to realize a situation where we'll say quality public health service in the health system. Now, that is how we can characterize our healthcare system, to say it is showing every sign of collapsing.
We have an interest in the subject of illicit financial flows. Our main mandate and agenda as gender activists is to eradicate and combat all forms of discrimination, inequalities, and power relations. Hence, we are determined to address and attend to all these things which we believe are the perpetrators of gender-based violence, and it gives birth to all kinds of power relations, and we are determined to address them. High levels of tax abuse and evasion undermine the principles of equality and discrimination in our nation. This we say because tax evaders end up paying less than taxpayers with the same financial capacity or even less. This increases inequality. On top of our agenda, we strive to bring awareness, sensitize all and sundry about the equal distribution of power and resources. For a country has to answer financially and otherwise in the budget and all exports and imports, so that everyone will benefit, especially when it comes to the education and health in the country.
We're taking up campaigns now which we want to broadcast to the rest of the people in the country that we want to curb these IFFs. Then as TUCOSWA, we have agreed that we are going to support every grouping that will be taking up this campaign and make sure that the whole of the country listens to our message and broadcast it to everyone. We shall be assisting our affiliates in the Federation. We shall be assisting all other organizations, including faith-based organizations. We shall be assisting civil society groupings, women, the youth, and everybody who share the same message as us. This we shall be doing so that we feel that the whole country should know this message, curb IFFs, because we have a feeling that it will help restore the economy as well as make the government to be responsible to her obligations in the country, the social contract, and will make sure that there is quality public service delivery, which as a federation is one of the pillars that we stand for, and we wish to pledge our full support to all organizations that will be carrying this message forward.